Welcome to the 10th edition of Drive-Thru Review. Today we're going to be talking about Biblios. It's a card game that plays 2 to 4 players. It is a constant drafting game. You draft at the beginning, you draft your cards, you draft points, you auction later, but you're still kind of drafting. You draft each card as you're drafting. As you draw the card, you're drafting, and then you're drafting some more. And I love drafting, so let's just get right into it.
Alright, so the first thing I'm going to show you is this cool box. And the box is made to look like a book, and you actually sort of open it like a book. It's got the little insert here for the cards, and the dice go in these two little slots. It gives you sort of a breakdown and a sort of a setup summary on the inside cover. And just snaps shut. It's a pretty cool looking box. So the objective of the game is to hold the majority in as many of these different colors as you can. And right now, there's 5 colors: brown, blue, green, orange, red. Right now, each of these colors is worth 3 points. So if I held the majority in brown, I'd get 3 points. There are cards that allow you to change the value of each of these colors. So I could play a card maybe and increase that to 5 points. So if I held the majority in brown, then I would get 5 points. The way that you hold the majority is at the end of the game, everybody reveals their cards, and whoever has the most total value of cards in that color gets the majority. So if I had these cards here, these are blue, that's 8 points. If my opponent had these, they'd have 5 points. And so that means I'd win blue. In this case, blue is still showing a 3, so I'd get 3 points at the end of the game. And then you just go compare all the colors. So there's basically 3 types of cards in the game. There's cards that match the color, and they also have a little symbol here. So in case you're colorblind, you can see there's the brown, and the brown has the little quill and pen type of thing, and the red has a skull. There's values for the cards, and they're sort of broken into 2 groups. The green, the orange, and the red have 1s and 2s. And the brown and the blues have 2, 3s, and 4s. So they play a little bit differently in the game. The other type of card is money card, and there's 1, 2, and 3, and it just shows a little picture of gold. And I should just say that the art is really nice on these games. The last type of card are these dice modification cards. These are called church cards in the game. So when you play these, like this card for example, you can increase one of the dice by 1 and then subtract one of the dice by 1. In this one you can actually subtract 2 of the dice by 1. In this one you can increase it by 1, and this one you can increase 2 by 1. So how does the actual flow of play work? Well, there's 2 phases to the game. The first phase you call your draft phase. The second phase of the game is your auction phase. So the way that the draft phase is going to work, and I'm going to do it for 2 players. So what you do is on my turn, I'm going to draw 3 cards one at a time. I'll draw and look at the first card. Okay. So at this point, I've got this 2 gold here. I can do one of 3 things with it. I can keep it for my hand for later on. I can put it face down in another pile, which will become an auction pile, which will go into the second phase of the game. Or I can put it face up for my opponent to take after my turn is over. So I can do one of 3 things. In this case, let's say I'll just put it up for auction. Now I draw one more card. This is a 2 brown. Okay, I'm going to keep that for later. I draw my last card. This is a dice card. Now when you draw a dice card or win it in an auction later, you must immediately play it. So in this case, since I've already kept a card, I'm not going to keep it, so I won't be the one to play it. If I decided to keep it, then I would play it. If I decided to put it in the auction, it would just go face down, then it comes up in the auction, whoever wins it would play it. But in this case, since I've already chosen these 2 cards, I'm now forced to give this to my opponent. So I'll put that face up, he'll grab it, and then he'll get to play it immediately and subtract 1 from any dice. If we were playing a 3-player game, instead of drawing 3 cards one at a time, I draw 4 cards one at a time. So you basically draw however many players plus 1. And so this would go in front, and then the next card would automatically go in front. And then clockwise for me, the first player would choose a card and the other would choose a card. So we're going to go through the whole deck this way. We're just going to pass the deck around. Everybody's going to draw a card one at a time. We're going to build up the auction pile. Whoops. And then we're going to build up our hands. And then once the auction pile is full, let's say that becomes the auction pile, then we're going to go through and auction off the cards. So how does the auction phase work? The starting player who started the drafting phase reveals a card. The person to the left of them bids. And you keep bidding around in a circle until somebody is the winner. The thing is you just verbally speak your bid. So you can actually bluff. And let's say this is all the gold I had in my hand and it came to me and it was already at 7. I could say 8 because just so I could push the price up further, even though there's no way I can win it. The thing is, though, if you get called on your bluff, meaning you win the auction and you don't have the money, then all the other players get to randomly take a card from your hand. So you want to be real careful about this bluffing. And I've played this game a few times, and I think the bluffing really only came into play once or twice in well, not all the games, but the few games that I've played. So let's say I win this for 3 gold. I'll pay that into the discard pile, get this card, and now since it's a dice card, I have to immediately play it. Then the next player will go. He'll flip up a card. Oh, now this is gold. Well, how do you auction for gold? Well, in this case, instead of paying gold for gold, you pay cards for gold, and you just announce that you're going to bid X number of cards. So let's say all I had in my hand was these 2 oranges, and for a total of 2. I know that I'm not going to win the orange dice pretty much. So I might say, oh, okay, I'll bid 2 cards, and then you just discard these face down, so nobody knows that you don't need orange. And then you get the two gold for a later auction. And then you just keep going through this until the deck is done. After that's over, everybody reveals all the colors they have. And then you add up the total points. The tiebreaker is gold. And that's pretty much the game. It's a lot of people on the Geeka compared it to For Sale. I'd say, yeah, it's definitely a lot like that. It's quite a bit different. If you're playing a 2-player game, and that's one of the ways it does something For Sale doesn't, is it works for 2, and it actually works really well for 2. You'll actually pull out about, I think it was 27 cards. It tells you in the setup on the front of the box. So you pull out, a good chunk of cards, and so you don't know quite what's in there, what your opponent has. You don't know for sure. Just because you haven't seen any blue cards, let's say, doesn't necessarily mean that your opponent is hoarding the blue cards. There's a chance they've got it, but you may still want to try to go for it. And, I just played a game today where if I'd have had 3 blue or something like that, I don't remember exactly, I would have won. And my opponent just had the 2 blue, and guess what? He got it, and that was the difference in the game because that time the blues were 2 points, and that's much he won by 2.
Well, as you can tell, it's a pretty straightforward game, pretty simple. It plays really quick. I played it 3 times at my lunch break today, and I think that we rushed through the last one, played it in like 10 minutes, and it was actually a really close game. It came down to one auction at the end of the game for one of the dice modifiers, and that was the key. He modified one of my colors down that he knew I was going for, and I lost by basically that. um, yeah, it plays really good from 2 to 4 players. It definitely a different feel from 2 to 4. Whereas with 2 players, you might be going for the number of dice that you acquire. You definitely there's only 5 dice to get, so 4-player, it's a little different. You're trying to get basically do the best you can with what you get, and it takes 1 or 2 plays to really get into the strategy of it. And like I said at the beginning, it's really you're constantly drafting stuff, because you're not able to see every card when you draft. You see 1 card at the beginning of the game, you're like, well, what do I do? Do I keep it? Do I throw it away? Do I put it in the auction for maybe later? And as you play a couple times, you'll see, what decisions are the correct one. But definitely a filler game. It's fun filler, fast filler. Uh, it's filler that plays 2 to 4, so good stuff.